Hi everyone, Tim Vipond here. I'm excited to walk you through a day in the life as an investment banking analyst. And this video is based on my own personal experience as an analyst in investment banking for 2 years. And I'm going to describe to you in detail what my day looked like. I'm going to break it down for you. We'll talk about what investment banking interns and analysts actually do in a day. We'll go over what a typical day looks like. We're going to talk about the hierarchy and workflows and expectations, as well as time commitments. Then we'll look at the skills and tools that are needed to succeed. And this is actually where we specialize at CFI in training you for those skills and how to use those tools that you need. And then finally, we'll talk about how CFI actually goes about preparing you for a career in investment banking. So, with that in mind, I want to begin with a simple explanation of why this video exists, which is to demystify what investment banking analysts or interns actually do. And I'm using my own personal experience as an example. So, I'm going to walk through how internships typically work or how new analyst programs typically work. They're more or less the same for an intern and a junior analyst. It's more or less the same work. And I really can't overemphasize the fact that we have a deep understanding of what that job looks like as trainers of professionals that go into these roles, whether it's New York, London, Singapore, Dubai, or anywhere else in the world. We've got students from all 200 countries around the world. Now, one thing I want to mention up front is that investment banking teams or divisions are often divided into two groups. There's M&A advisory on one side and industry groups on the other side. And industry groups are dealing more with financings, and the M&A group comes in anytime there's a merger or acquisition. So you could be assigned to the M&A team. You could also be assigned to an industry group, like technology, media, and telecommunications, for example, or the TMT group. So with that in mind, just to give a little more of a picture for you, M&A advisory deals with mergers and acquisitions, as the name implies. It also deals with restructurings, activism defense, and these types of takeover type activities. On the industry group side or financing side, you're dealing with raising equity, raising debt, or structured finance. So the industry groups usually start their day a little bit earlier, and M&A comes in a little bit later. I'm not exactly sure why this tradition has emerged, but it has, and the M&A group almost prides itself on how late it comes in, but also how late it stays at night. And M&A probably works a little bit longer than an industry group. But let's start walking through the structure of a typical day. So you're going to be working, I hate to say it, but you're probably going to be working about 15 hours a day. For me, it ranged from 12 hours on a lighter day, if we were not involved in a deal or transaction, to about 16, maybe at the max, 18, at the high end of the scale, if we're involved in a deal. I really want to emphasize that the work can ebb and flow depending on if you're just doing pitch work, which is a little less urgent, or if you're doing deal work, which is incredibly urgent and your hours are going to increase. So with that in mind, you might start anywhere between 8 and 9 a.m., depending on the group, depending on the city, depends on a lot of things. First thing you're going to do when you get in is check your email. You've probably already checked it on your phone, but you're going to go through all your emails and plan out your day and see what you have to focus on. You really take your orders from the rest of the team. So anyone who's above you, there's a really strict hierarchy, is going to be giving you work to do. You're going to be using PowerPoint, Excel, and other data tools like Bloomberg Terminal, for example. So you're going to get caught up in the morning, get oriented for your day, look at your emails, figure out what takes top priority or what you can leave until later in the day. So let's say from 9 to 11, you start working on your assigned projects the first few hours of the day. It could include things like updating PowerPoint slides, reformatting charts and graphs, cross-checking numbers in Excel, incorporating analyst and associate feedback that you've received from senior members of your team, performing a comps table in Excel, performing a discounted cash flow model in Excel, things that we teach extensively at CFI. And you've heard me talk about analysts, associates, and senior people. I want to take a minute to talk about the hierarchy in investment banking. Typically, investment banks have a rigid hierarchy that starts with interns at the bottom, then analysts, then associates, then vice presidents, then sometimes there's a director level, and for sure above that, a managing director level. So MD is the top of the pyramid, analyst is the bottom of the pyramid, and if you have interns, they sit below the analyst. So intern basically reports to everyone, but is going to get most of their direction from an analyst, and analysts get their direction from associates, associates from VPs, and so on. You can see it follows a very almost militaristic type of hierarchy. And just for a little bit of context, understanding this structure really helps our learners navigate expectations when they enter the workplace, and something we focus on as part of our training, not just the technical work, but also the social skills, interpersonal and communication skills that you need to excel in the role. So let's keep moving on through the day. You've done a few hours of work at your desk in Excel and PowerPoint. Now you might have to attend some internal meetings. These could be focusing on ongoing deals or pitches and prospecting opportunities to win new business. Typically, you're going to be taking notes as an intern or an analyst. You might be using AI note taking at this point, but back when I was an investment banking analyst, I would take notes, type up the summary, send those out to everyone after the meeting, and distribute those. Basically, get work orders as well from that meeting, right? As people are asking for things to be done, you're taking note. So you've had a couple hours of work at your desk, a couple hours of meetings. You're probably getting ready to take a lunch break. It really varies by city, by culture, by team. It could be at 12, it could be at 1, it could be at 2 if you're super busy and you can't get out until 2 o'clock. Typically, the interns and the analysts will go either alone or in a small group of other analysts and interns, go pick something up and bring it back to their desk. And usually the second half of the day and then the last part of the day are the busiest in investment banking. The morning is a bit quieter, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, the work tends to fall on your lap a bit later in the day. So let's take a minute to talk about the sort of middle part of the day here, where you're making revisions to presentations, finalizing materials that need to get sent out to clients, updating materials, supporting client meetings, and preparing other people on the team for meetings with clients. And you could also be talking to other team members to get feedback on your work and then going and executing that work. And just to paint a little more picture, when I talk about the work, I'm mostly talking about Excel number crunching, right? Building 3-statement models that are dynamically linked, performing discounted cash flow analysis, building comps tables, precedence tables. Those are the sort of bread and butter types of analysis you perform in investment banking and that we teach at CFI. The other part of it is presentation making or document building. Document building could be a Word doc or Google Doc that is like, say, a confidential information memorandum or SIM. It could be a pitch deck to win new business, PowerPoint slides. It could be working on a prospectus if you're working on, say, an IPO. So there are a variety of types of documents or presentations that you work on. So this is, say, a busy afternoon working on Excel files, working on documents. You might get a break later in the afternoon. Maybe there's a lull. You can go grab a coffee. In some cases, you could duck out to the gym for, say, a 30-minute workout if there's a gym in your building. You know, there's some flexibility built into the day. But by and large, you're sort of locked in the building, if you will. Now, as it gets closer to dinner, you're going to be finalizing more work, doing a last kind of push till about, say, 7 o'clock, at which point the managing directors and senior people might already be leaving, or they might have left a little before that. And then they're leaving for you, I should say, your marching orders for the evening, where the fun really starts. But before the fun starts in the evening work, there is a highlight of the day, which is you get to order dinner. So one of the honors of being an intern or being an analyst is taking orders for dinner. Typically, you're going to look at a place, find a place to order from, go collect everybody's orders, and put it in. Now, you might use an app these days. You might actually just use DoorDash or Uber Eats or something. But when I was doing it, those didn't exist. And so we would just more manually take the orders. But either way, you're going to be ordering and taking care of dinner for everyone and, getting it to the office. Everyone might take a short break to gather their dinner and eat part of it, say around 7 or 8 p.m., and then get ready for the final push. The final push is going to be from about 8 p.m. till 11 or midnight, sort of depending, again, on the deals you're working on, the city, the culture, and so on. And you're going to just keep doing more of the same thing. Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, Word docs, all this kind of stuff. You're going to be fixing spelling mistakes. You're going to be tweaking the axis of a graph. You're going to be changing the formatting of a slide. You're going to be redoing some numbers in a comps table, making changes to assumptions in the DCF model, all these kind of things. And these are like the core of our financial modeling and investment banking training courses at CFI as well. So as you head toward the end of the day, could be 11 o'clock, let's just say, you want to do one final check to make sure you're good to leave. So you're going to review all the things you had to do. You're going to make sure you've sent all those things off. You're going to get sort of direction from anyone else who might still be in the office to confirm that it's okay to leave. But you're typically going to want to be one of the last people to leave because it's so hierarchical in investment banking. It's typically like the most senior people get to leave the earliest, and you just work your way down the chain until you're left with analysts and interns typically at the end. So that's a typical weekday. Now let's talk about weekends for a minute. It really varies firm to firm. And if you're in the middle of a deal, you might have to work all weekend. But firms are trying to give Saturdays as protected days off. I don't think that always happens, but at least that's what they're trying to do. And then you might work, say, a half day on Sunday. So hopefully that gives you a sense of a typical day in investment banking. It's obviously very intense. It's very long. It's extremely hierarchical and is very focused on number crunching and presentation making. So as you're thinking through your career aspirations, keep all that in mind. If you're looking for an intense experience, but you want exposure to real deals, big transactions, and stuff that makes the front page of the newspaper, then investment banking could be a great career for you. And I just want to leave you with one final plug, which is for CFI training. If you're going in as an intern or analyst, you need to be prepared. It's going to go so much smoother for you if you have the training under your belt that you need to succeed, and the training that, quite frankly, I wish I had before I was an investment banking analyst. So I leave you with that. Thank you for joining me for this overview of a day in the life as an investment banking analyst.